Rams traded for Von Miller and how this affects the 49ers and other things that come next. Deshaun Watson didn't get traded. Kyler looks like he's going to be out for the Niners against the Niners. A bunch of NFL headlines, so a lot to get to. But let's start with this. Von Miller traded to the Rams for a second and a third. The Broncos are going to pay $9 million of the remaining $9.7 million. It leaves the Rams now with, let me read you their 2022 draft picks. First rounder, no. Second rounder, no. Third rounder, 1. And it's a comp pick. It's not because they traded the second and the third for Vaughn. So the third rounder they have is going to be compensatory, which is, last I checked, back of the round. That's for Brad Holmes being hired. Fourth rounder, no. Fifth rounder, yep, they got a fifth. Sixth rounder, no. That was Sony Michel. Seventh rounder, they have 2. Their own pick and a pick they got in the Aqib Talib trade, which last I checked, he's playing for the Volume and Fox. So that's the state of things for the Rams right now.
That's an incredible, just like trivia question. Like, where did they get the 7th round pick from? Aqib hasn't he been out of the league for like 3 years? Yeah, well, on a big picture for the 49ers, I just think, the Red Sox at one point in time, as the money really grew in sports, just realized, like, if we want to go toe-to-toe with the Yankees, we have to operate like the Yankees. And it felt like that happened in the 2000s, like after the Yankees had gone on the run, and when they tried to make that A-Rod trade, they just tried to match them. Like, that's the only way. Now, baseball's a little different in football, but I don't think it can be argued. You are playing with a team. Like the Patriots were the opposite of this, right? During their dynasty, right, of the Yankees. They were, I wouldn't call them frugal, but they were always trading guys at the end of their careers. They would, in a million years, they did this one time, and it was Brady's last year, and they immediately regretted it with Mohamed Sanu. Remember, they traded like a second and third for Mohamed Sanu, and it's like, this is a disaster. And Bill's like, I'm fucking never doing this again. And the Rams just do not care. They really don't. Now, I don't think all trades are equal. To me, the Matt Stafford trade is a guy 32 years old that could be on your team for another 8 years, and he's going to get extended. Jalen Ramsey was a 25-year-old lockdown corner, looked like he's going to the Hall of Fame. This is, and listen, I went to the Super Bowl 50. I put, I think, $1,500 on 2 separate bets, like $750 and another $500 bet, and I won like $3,000 on that Super Bowl, and it was awesome. And this guy was a Super Bowl MVP. And back when, you used to get Sundays off, this guy right here was going to watch shitty Raider games and I went to those Bronco games with Peyton Manning and that team, and they used to beat the shit out of him. And this guy, and yesterday watching him kind of get teary-eyed on his way out, like with like the local reporter interviewing him, I think the thing any fan will tell you, all they truly want about they want their best players to be great players. But I think if you truly give a shit and it feels like you're all in on the city, it's like, this guy's one of ours. Like how Clay and Steph and Draymond have felt. Brandon Crawford's always felt like that. I think Joe Staley always felt like that. And then you play really hard, they can't ask you for anything more, right? If you're a great player and you just have 2 things. You feel like you care about the city/team, and you just, every game you play hard. And Von Miller made he used to beat the shit out of the Raiders. It did not feel like, he's just kind of going through the motions. And clearly he was doing that in all their games. But that's not the guy anymore. Remember, he had a devastating injury last year. I think in training camp, missed the entire season. I didn't realize this till seeing the things get like tweeted out yesterday. He doesn't even know if he's healthy enough to play this week. Second and a third, like I admire their mindset, and what they did for Matt Stafford clearly is. Could that go down as the best trade in the history of the franchise? Really? I mean, when you think about it, Jared Goff has not won a game without Sean McVay in his career.
Yeah, I mean, what did they trade for? Eric Dickerson? I don't know how'd they get him.
Oh, they traded for Marshall Faulk, I think, once from the Colts. That one worked out pretty well.
That's right, the St. Louis Rams. Yeah, I forgot about
St.
that
Louis
franchise.
Got him from the Colts, but it has
they've
a chance.
They've made some good
right?
trades. I mean, Jalen Ramsey it cost a lot, but he's been a really good player for them, right?
Yeah.
But I guess my point is this quarterback. But this feels that's your point.
This feels a little bit more like it feels like it happens in the NBA a lot. 2 names that came to my mind were Weber and Allen Iverson, like as they get traded when it was over. But it was like, damn, AI's traded the Pistons. I think they both in separate trades got traded to the Pistons. Maybe together. Did he end up with the Sixers? But it happens in the NBA historically a lot, just because their individual players are so famous, and there are just so many Von Millers playing in the NBA. Russell Westbrook has been constantly traded. Now, he's a better version than Von Miller at their own sport right now. But, Guy, I think this is an all-time great trade for the Broncos. He was a free agent. He was not going to be back on the team next year, and they just got a second and third round pick for. They were going to pay this guy anyway, right? If no one would trade for him. And to me, the Rams felt a little.
It's a good trade for the Broncos. It's one of those like at the end of the day, it's a good value trade for them. They got a second and a third. They bought a second and a third. If they draft, not cornerstones of their franchise, but starting players, then it's a really good trade for them. But their side of the trade is uninteresting, right? Their side of the trade was just smart and very good. I think the one thing that gives Vaughn a chance, like if the Rams win the Super Bowl and Von Miller plays for the Rams, then it's going to be hard to argue, because that's, what am I worried about the next 5 years if the whole thing is I'm trying to win a Super Bowl?
Goal of the
that's
sport.
What they're trying to do, right? So you would trade a Super Bowl win
for a whole draft,
for
an
a lot of
draft.
Yeah.
For an entire
now,
draft.
The Rams haven't had a first-round pick. The Rams have been good for a few years now, John. They haven't had a first-round pick since Jared Goff in 2016, and they didn't have one this year anyway. Now they've gotten starters in the second and third, like Tutu Atwell obviously was their second rounder. Cam Akers, Van Jefferson, those were second rounders.
Injury reserve Tutu.
But Van Jefferson's been a good player for him.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Taylor Rapp, but I think that you can easily not get starters. Note Bloom, he starts for them, right? The tackle, he was a third rounder.
But if here's the thing. The 49ers do not operate like that. Like, it was pretty jarring when they made the trade for Trey Lance, right? It's an all-time story. We built a business off for a month off of it. It was incredible. It was awesome. But part of the reason it was awesome is it was so crazy. It was weird seeing them get traded, but then you're like, oh, the Rams traded draft picks. It's not even weird anymore. Everyone's numb to it. But this is not going to stop. They're okay, this draft, whatever. Well, then the next year in season, why wouldn't they trade, next year's one when you just throw out a player. Roquan Smith is available. Oh, they'll give 2 1s for Roquan Smith, right? They will just keep doing this. You are in a team. Now, I'm not saying they're the Yankees, because the Yankees were winning when the Red Sox had to start matching them. Winning titles. This team is winning, but they've only been to one Super Bowl, and that was several years ago. But you are with a team that will do everything no matter what for the immediate future. And you just are going to have to match. And as long as they have Stafford, they are not going to go away, right? That's the thing. Now they're in position where they can kind of do that for 3 or 4 years. Belichick defended some of his moves, right, over the last 3 or 4 years when people were like, you didn't hit on any picks. What? He's like, well, we were always living in the present those last 2 or 3 years with Tom. And that's just how they're operating with a guy that's much younger. So if you're the Niners, you better be careful about always taking the long. Will you just trade a second for I'm just throwing out Adam Thielen. I'm just throwing out names, but they will, right? You're just gonna have to start matching them with talent.
Yeah, drafted talent or whatever. The fact at some point you would think it comes home to roost a little bit, but I guess they could, as we were talking about our MyBookie, you press your advantage. They could keep just pressing and pressing and pressing, because they've been doing it for a while now, right? The 2 firsts plus a 4th for Jalen Ramsey. They traded for Marcus Peters and then traded him away. They traded a first for Brandon Cooks. That thing was pretty wild. They got a 4th back.
I forgot about that.
Sammy Watkins, remember that trade?
Forgot
Not
about
as
that.
crazy, but that was hold on, I'm scrolling through my Sammy Watkins was a second, a cornerback, EJ Gaines for Sammy Watkins, but it was a second.
But do you agree the Niners won't do these things?
Most teams
they have.
Do these things.
They haven't. Yeah. But they're who you're chasing. Seattle will, as long as Pete and John are there. They will. The Cardinals will.
They are who you're chasing, but I don't think it's definitely, this is not the only way to do it. You don't have to do it this way in order to be as good as the Rams. Right?
Just draft Aaron Banks and all the other guys and inactivate them.
It's just if you got a few good players and you're like the Rams, this is one way to do it.
I'm pro drafting and developing, but the Niners their drafting is fucking a little weird right now, right?
Yeah, to me, it's not that you have to do it this way. To me, the lesson is just the pressure is going to be on you every year. There's never going to be 3 years. I said free, Free, right? As good as the Patriots were, they could have won a lot of divisions, but they had a lot of years where their division just wasn't any good.
They got lucky that way for sure.
But that's okay. You don't apologize for that. I'm just saying between Seattle, who kind of operates this way too, right?
But the Patriots were really, like, after a while, they weren't focused on Miami, the Jets, or the Bills. Weren't they more locked into, like, the Colts, the Steelers, when the Chiefs came, the Ravens? Like, they viewed it like the AFC, right? More than, like, their equals or people chasing them. Right?
Absolutely. But part of the reason they could do it part of the reason they could view it that way is because they had 6 games in their division that you figure every year, like, at worst, we're going 4-2.
And it felt like they were going 5-1, 6-0 a lot.
Yeah, it's stressful. There's a reason. I mean, the Niners wanted Stafford, right? So now he's in their division, and Kyler's in their division, and Russell's in their division for now. But Seattle kind of operates this way. We'll see. Arizona has traded for Chandler Jones before. Now the Niners traded for Trent Williams.
How about their wide receiver?
They traded for 2 of them, and then they just kind of chase those guys. Even Hopkins was a trade, but A.J. Green a signing, J.J. Watt a signing. They just go after that type of player.
That's my point, that Steve Keim is very aggressive, and he has been his whole time. Because think of the coach that he hired, right? Bruce Arians and now Cliff. Like, he wants to be a riverboat camp. I think Steve Keim's good. Schneider and Pete are well established. Like, the 3 teams in their division. Now, Schneider and Pete could change. I don't think Schneider necessarily will, but if Pete changes, I actually think Schneider is really aggressive too, right? I mean, it's hard to tell, because I think he trades down. Who knows? We'll find out more if Pete ever leaves. But we know for a fact Keim and Les/McVay, or they don't give a shit, right? If they can get, like, I just think the Niners, and listen, Parag's really smart. John Lynch is really smart. Kyle is just a coach. He's a smart coach, but he's a coach. Coaches think a little differently than those guys. They're a little bit more like cost-benefit analysis. Like you're going to Wharton School of Business getting the breakdown on the whiteboard. Like, I don't know if there's that much fucking whiteboard breakdown going on with the Rams. Right?
No, it does not feel that way.
And because there wasn't.
Well, there might be. It might be a result of them having done it and having a different philosophy. Like, your hit rate in the draft is just not high enough to justify not acquiring established players.
Why I just think it gets where you don't have to do as much cost-benefit analysis when you have had a lot of success doing something a specific way. Like, why do you guys do a podcast? Well, because we're having a lot of success doing it, right? We didn't need to pivot and change and beg to go back to radio or do something else, right? Once you start doing something and it works, you just do it, right? It's just a lot of people start podcasts and then quit them. We just keep on going. Like, they just keep on going. I'm not comparing us to the Rams, but Tito's no big deal. Number 1 vodka in America.
Yeah, I think it's as simple as they're going to put the pressure on you, and that means that your mistakes, when you make mistakes, it's harder. It's harder to overcome mistakes when your whole division is constantly pressing. Now, the beauty of it is there's a wild card, right? There are wild cards. You don't have to win your division.
3
wild cards, actually. Kind of crazy. So you don't have to win your division, but partly you have to win games, and you play these teams 6 times.
Well, when they had
and
their
you've
most
had
success,
an advantage again, like you have beaten them. That's the other thing.
When they had their most success as a franchise, one of the most successful runs in sports history, from 1981 till about 1999, up until Eddie got popped. That was their ethos. They were that team. They were that guy. Jerry copied the Niners, right? I mean, they operated like the Lakers. They operated like the Yankees. And now, like, that's the Rams in this division. And that's been Seattle. Now, you're right. The Rams did some weird, they didn't hit on them all. Seattle feels like missed on more of them. And the Cardinals, there just haven't been as many for them, but they've fucking been pretty nails on Hopkins and Chandler Jones, right? I mean, the Niners would die to have either one of those guys, especially Chandler.
Yeah.
But, that's not really been the Niners' MO.
No.
It's just not. So if you are going to do the draft and develop thing, and they had a bunch of picks last year, it's like they got a DB problem. Well, they drafted 2 DBs. Neither of them can dress. It's like their offensive lines, their guard's kind of questionable. Well, they drafted a guard in the second round. He cannot dress. It's fair to say that this year, that strategy for them, utilizing all those, mid to early round picks past Trey Lance, have been shitty, right? Because we're living in the now.
I would say it's even in the now, you are missing an opportunity. Like if you could operate your franchise one of two ways, how would you do it? If I said you're going to get to the Super Bowl, you're going to get to the Super Bowl, or you'll be, I shouldn't say you're going to get to the Super Bowl. You're going to be a playoff team. You can choose one of two ways to do it. Which way would you do it? Draft and develop your players, or trade your picks all the time and never have a first rounder?
Well, if I'm the head coach, it wouldn't matter. I mean,
I'm just asking you, John Middlecoff, what's the better way?
If I'm the GM, I would rather draft and develop because you get a lot of credit for drafting.
I know, but I'm not talking about credit. I'm just saying you, John Middlecoff, you watch football. What's the better way to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I would trade for guys because drafting's really hard.
No. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you can be good either way, what's the better way to be good?
Yeah, drafting them.
Drafting them, of course. So here are the Niners with all these draft picks, an opportunity to do it a better way than the Rams are doing it, and missing that opportunity.
But why is it a better way, though?
Because it's more cost effective. It's more sustainable long term.
But aren't they kind of proving that's not true?
Again, what I'm saying is, if I'm saying you're a playoff team, there is clearly a better way to do it. If either way gets you to the same end game, your window is open longer if you do it through the draft. That's the better way to do it.
Yeah, in theory, but I think
that's
proven.
That's what I'm talking about.
Theory. The Rams window won't end.
My point here is the Niners the Rams are going one way, and when you do it the way the Rams do it, you have a high ceiling. You also open up the possibility that it won't be sustainable long term. And the 49ers, then, if you are going about it the other way, you can make your team more cost effective than one of your rivals if you do it right. And the 49ers have not done it right. So the Rams have opened the door in their division because of the way they do it in 3 or 4 years for potentially to bite them. But you have to be ready to take advantage of it biting them. And right now, the Niners are not ready to take advantage of it biting them. Now, what you're saying is maybe it never bites the Rams. Maybe the Rams just keep doing this. Maybe they do. We'll see. But I think the cost-effective way, if it gets you to the same place, is definitely the better way to do it. But you have to be ready to take advantage. And the Niners are not in a position to take advantage of it because they've missed on a lot of picks.
Let me see. The Niners have a higher payroll than the Rams right now. The Niners,
yeah, they've got expensive players too. I mean, but
only 5 teams. I mean, 5 teams have a more expensive payroll than the Niners. The Rams are somehow, I don't know how it's possible, but the Niners, but also like the Niners have made the move, like with D Ford, and it's been a disaster. And they doubled down on it by moving his money back. So it's like, if you are here, to me, the key, because you could argue I think cost effective for a year or two, but immediately, like if you hit on a 3rd round pick, usually by the time for the most part, like they're not going to be an all like pro as a rookie. So by the 2nd year, they're good. You really get 2 years at a cheap price because you have to expend them after the 3rd year. Where like when I trade and buy like the Bills with Stephon Diggs, I immediately get a plug and play guy. Like part of the problem with the draft and the develop strategy is that assumes your team's really good, which as we see with the Niners, they're not that great. And then like everyone's timeline is not the same. For every,
right,
Debo Samuel, there might be maybe Lenore is good in 2 years, but shit, he didn't help this year and next year, right? So it's all kind of off kilter, right? Yeah. It's never like on the same plane. Like, yeah, ideally if I just get Micah Parsons and it's like, is Micah Parsons LaDainian or not LaDainian, but Lawrence Taylor, right? And you just get a guy ready to roll. But I'm watching, the Niners, their picks, like I don't even know if like the majority of them are ever going to be any good.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying it's working. I'm just saying if you hit your picks.
I guess my point is you're hammering this cost-effective thing. I do wonder as the cap keeps growing and growing and growing, you just have a little more wiggle room. I do wonder if that's a little overrated.
Maybe. I mean, eventually everyone's salary is a percentage of the cap. The more the cap grows, the more people get paid.
But you can always amortize stuff and move stuff around. That's the thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, to me, the more moves you have to make, the more opportunities there are to miss. And so when you have to constantly make moves, you have opportunities to miss. Now, the counter to that is, well, the more rookies you draft, the more chances you have to miss, as opposed to established players.
Now, we're also arguing about stuff like Von Miller has nothing in common with Matt Stafford or Jalen Ramsey, right? When they trade all those capital for those those guys combined, if they don't get hurt, could be on the team for a total of like 15 years combined, right? Matt Stafford could be on the team 8. Jalen could be on the year 8. Well, hell, 16 years. Whereas Vaughn, that's where I go back to the Vaughn thing. To me, that what you're arguing fits with Vaughn. You trading a second and third round, it's very baseball-y, right? Hey, it doesn't happen anymore because these guys are too smart. But like when we were like in junior high and college, you would just trade your 3 sweet prospects for CC Sabathia, and he was going to leave. And it was like, this could bite you in a couple years, and it did often to a lot of teams. Where this is like you're trading a second and third round pick, which at this pace are going to be like pick 28 to 32 range at the end of each round. But this guy is not going to be on your team next year, more than likely. So you're just getting these. He better be damn good, and he's already injured. Like that you're right on this player and this argument. To me, it doesn't fit on the Diggs and the Jalen's who just
are
Diggs
on your
is
team
better
for a
than
long time.
And are better than 2 first-round picks. Like, you give any team the ability to take two players in the first round over back-to-back years, more likely those 2 guys will combine not be as good as Jalen Ramsey, Stephon Diggs. You just go around, right? Matt Stafford, whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, but to me, this is why you pay what you pay for a quarterback. Is because none of it works if you don't have the quarterback, right?
True. Yeah.
Ramsey and Donald, obviously, but none of it, like the reason they go all in on Stafford, they could have traded 2 more picks for Stafford. It would have been worth it because he's good enough. And he makes the other things make sense. The other thing is they've turned around some of these times too and traded the person they acquired. Now that's not going to happen with Vaughn, but.
Like right now, for example, the team with the highest payroll in the league is the Dallas Cowboys. And they actually, when you think about it, have a ton of young impact guys, right? Now, granted, they're high picks. Micah Parsons is not like, they got Micah Parsons in the 4th, like he is the 11th pick in the draft. CD Lamb was the 17th pick. So they're not getting that guy for $800,000. So they've hit on picks, but 2 of their better players are first-round picks making $4 or $5 million. It's not nothing, right? George Kittle, Russell Wilson, even Dak several years ago. There is no value in all of sports beside baseball when you get the guy in the first couple of years, right? And he becomes a star. Like paying a star $800,000. That's the best value in sports. $800,000 is the best.
Yeah. That's why it is, to your point, impressive that the Rams had a first-round quarterback, succeeded with him, pivoted from him to an expensive quarterback, and are still really good.
They were able. The whole argument on the Rams is they survived because of Matt Stafford. Without him, they could not have kept going. This is not sustainable without Matt Stafford. But once you do, you're able to keep operating like the Yankees. Like, would shock you if next year, let's say they have a devastating loss this year, like they've gone all in, Packers beat them in the NFC Championship. The Rams lose to the Packers in the NFC Championship game, and they host it, right? And the Packers go in there and beat them. Then next season, like they're still going to be in Super Bowl or bust mode. Like that, there's a guy that's unhappy. I'm just going to pick a random, who would be a guy like Justin Jefferson's like, I want out. Like this, I hate Cousins. Like this sucks. And they trade 2 months to go get Justin Jefferson or something.
Yeah.
Would that shock you?
No, it shouldn't. Now it would shock me.
I know it doesn't necessarily add up, but I'm just saying maybe 2 twos to get. Maybe he's too good, but you know what I'm saying, like
right.
Like that guy, like they will continue to do that.
But I would also say from a Niner standpoint, it already has affected them, right? Jamal Adams, multiple ones for him. The Rams operating the way they operate. The Niners traded multiple ones to go get a quarterback. Like the Niners are operating like they're feeling now maybe it's not related, but they're operating like it. Like if Jared Goff was still the quarterback of the Rams and Matthew Stafford had never been traded, would the 49ers have traded up to acquire Trey Lance?
Maybe because he was getting his ass kicked last year without a quarterback.
Yeah, maybe they would have. If Kyler Murray was on the Dolphins and the Cardinals were sure looking for a quarterback.
So I think it shows you, though, He doesn't maybe have to be a top 5 guy, but I'd say anything less than basically being a top 10 guy, the Niners are in big trouble.
Well, they are. But that's not even a reflection of the rest of the division.
No,
That's
no.
what happens. I'm just saying, I think the way the Rams operate, the fact that the Cardinals haven't necessarily done the same thing. They did it for Hopkins, though, and they just scrapped a first-round quarterback and drafted another one the next year.
They got lucky because they ended up being the number one pick.
Yeah, but it's like, I know people say it's not value to draft quarterback in the first round back year. Screw it. This is what we got to do. So, yeah, the Niners have operated as if that environment has affected them. They outbid the Chiefs for Trent Williams. Now, he's the number one player according to PFF this year. But it's already affected, I think, the way the Niners operate.
Yeah. Well, Kyler's going nowhere. I mean, I know he's injured right now, but I'm just saying, like,
injured
as long
list,
as he's,
yeah,
as long as he's healthy. And Stafford. So it's like both those guys are top 10 quarterbacks this year, right?
Yeah.
And they're not. And Kyler's 25 and Stafford is 32, so they're going nowhere. And if Russell, and I would imagine even if Pete goes, wouldn't you say John Schneider will do everything humanly possible to fix that relationship? Like, he more than likely, I know you can pray for it, but they would be insane to trade him. So, like, that's who you're going against. You're not just like, you got to have a top quarterback to win. So why you need Mahomes or now? Well, yeah, you need a top quarterback to win. We know that for a fact. Just to win these fucking divisional games, you got 3 guys. I mean, Russell, when healthy, is a top 3 guy. Stafford is going to establish himself as a top 7, 8 guy. Kyler is right there, too. Like, holy moly. Like, Trey cannot be just, like, solid, or you will lose. It's just that simple. Like, to me, it just does show you, like, it's all, the 3 first-round picks better turn into a blue-chip guy, or else they're in trouble.
Well, and to counter my point from earlier a little bit, if I said, are the Rams going to be good every year for the next 5 years? I'd say, yeah, they're going to be good every year for the next 5 years.
As long as Stafford's healthy, yeah.
Right.
Because Aaron, like, for example, Donald is getting older. Like, maybe their defense won't be as good, but their offense is dynamic.
Jason says, it's not a better way to do it, whatever the Niners are not doing it.
It's true.